name is Yanyu. I did honors degree in psychology and I finished my degree at end of 2021. So basically, I think that's a very long story, but initially, because of my upbringing experience, I was initially quite interested in I guess like humans' antisocial behaviors and some violent behaviors. And at that time, I was actually interested in becoming a detective. And then I started searching, so I was like in primary school at that time, I think, and I started search some social knowledge and information on how to become a detective. And then I got some information on, oh, you know what, like detectives, they need to study how, like why people do what they are doing and how they are doing and how their social brain impact how they behave. And then I just like searched more on those things, and then I find the word psychology. I guess that's when I started like kind of like, that's when I formed my interest in psychology. Yeah. Well, I guess I was forced to do an honors degree because, you know, in Australia, if you want to become a clinical psychologist or clinical neuropsychologist, you have to have an honors degree to, I guess, like to get into, you know, higher level of study. But I do think, even though I was forced, I really enjoy my experience. Yeah. So since I was doing my undergraduate degree, I sort of feel like, because you know doing honors is doing your sort of your own project, and I want to know who is the best one I can work with to support my own project in the first place. So I started to talk with different people, different like, you know, lecturers and professors in the school, and I trying to understand how they are doing their research and what their research is about. And I kind of like still selected my supervisors based on my own interest. And also I asked supervisors, I asked those like potential supervisors about their supervision styles. For example, I asked someone, oh, if you just like, you know, if you prefer to have like weekly meetings with students, or if you just that kind of supervisor who supports students to do whatever they want to, as long as it's correct. So I also like I was trying to find a supervisor who can, like whose supervision style fit my studying style for my honors degree. Yeah. Sure. So when you say the word biggest, I would assume that you're asking me one challenge, but actually I experienced quite a few biggest challenges during my honors year. So I would say like for the honors like year in general, I would say the biggest challenge was to balance my life and also my study, because because of some like personal reasons, I had to work sort of like full-time and also like studying full-time at the same time. And I also experienced some like personal events that prevented me from study for a few months, and it was a bit hard for me to balance my life and also my study. And also for my honors project per se, I would think the biggest challenge was because my honors project is a bit complicated in relation to the data analysis part, and sort of I had to learn lots of things myself. And I think that was like in the end, that process gave me a huge sense of achievement. But like during that stage, I remember I was like lying on the floor and crying. And while I was crying, I was still like reading my books on structural equation modeling. So yeah, that was pretty tough and hard, but yeah. Sure, I think the most important thing for like no matter like the student is honors student or undergraduate student or like even employees of any field, I think the most important thing is communication. So because I remember because I remember because of my kind of like personal experience during my honors year, and also because I was like working sort of full-time as well, I sometimes, actually most of the time, I lost track of communicate with my supervisors, and which actually I think slowed the whole process down a little bit. And I feel it's very like not very responsible to not to let your supervisor know where you are. I mean, like not physically where you are, but like at which point your project is at, and also how you are feeling and what's your like expectations for the project and for yourself and also for your supervisors. So I think communications is really important, because a very good communication can like help can help everyone in the team to get prepared and to get ready for potential challenges and next stage of the research project. Yeah. Oh, I think, to be honest, I'm someone who is good at coping with, distress and stress and, like those kind of like negative emotions. So for most of the time I cry. And also I had for the past few years I have my own psychologist, and I have been like keeping seeing my psychologist on a kind of like regular basis, and I find that's very helpful just to talk to someone, and having someone who is a professional can give you some advice on how to cope with your like distress or those kind of feelings, negative feelings. And also I think like my supervisors and my friends and my partner at that time, they were really supportive as well, and they cooked for me. They just like, did everything nice to me. So I feel like every time when I was having a negative mood, having a negative feeling, I was thinking about, oh, there are so many people behind me who are like supporting me. So that gave me power as well. Yeah. Sure. So that's a piece of very important and interesting experience for me. However, that's something that I never want to experience again. So basically, like from my life aspect, perhaps 3 or 4 days before I submitted my thesis, I didn't sleep that much, and I didn't have the chance to cook. However, but that's something very nice, because my partner at that time, he was like cooking all the meals for me, and he was like even preparing ice creams for me. So that's very nice. However, one thing that's very like strange was that most of people, they feel like, oh, it's such a relief. So I submitted my thesis, and I feel quite differently, because once I press that button to submit my thesis, I feel like there were definitely something else I could do. I could make this better. It's not publishable. It's not good enough. And I was like blaming myself a little bit, and then I just like fell asleep because I was too sleepy. And after I woke up, my partner at that time, so that's the celebrating part, my partner at that time, so he was riding a bike with me, and we went to Fremantle. And I remember the sunshine was very nice, and I can't remember what we did in Fremantle, but that was a nice experience. Yeah. Well, I think we went to time zone, so that's surely something we would never do, and I would never recommend you to do during your honors period, but you can do that for your celebration. Yeah. So I think I have a couple of advice. So first of all, although I understand the transaction from undergraduate to honors is a bit hard, but I still feel like students should treat honors project as a single research project that they are in charge of. So it's their own, I would describe for most of the students, the honors research project is their first research project, and I think that's a good opportunity for them to develop some skills to handle their own research project. So just trying to be independent, however trying to find a balance between being independent and also communicate with other members of your research team, because as I mentioned, I think communication is really important. So keep everyone updated about what you are doing. I mean, not what you are doing, cooking or sleeping, but what you're doing with your project at that time, and what's your plan for the next stage and for the next stage, and so sort of develop a reasonable but good timeline with everyone in the team. And also listen to your supervisors, listen to other lab members from your lab, and even listen to your friends and to ask their opinions. So of course that's your research project and no one understands more than you about the project, but still listen to other people's advice and trying to learn things from their advice. And another advice for the life aspect is that although I have mentioned that I was working at the same time while I was studying, I surely think that I would achieve much better score if I didn't work, but I had no choice at that time. So I would say it's just 1 year or maximally 2 years for those part-time students, and trying to just focus on your study while you are doing your honors, because honors degree is not something you can redo. So just try not to leave any regret for the future yourself. Yeah. Okay, so although I just in one of my previous question I said that's submission for my honors thesis was something that I never want to experience again, but if I have the chance to redo my honors, I think I will still do it again. So because I think it's just such a valuable experience, and it's very interesting, it's very tough. I mean, I personally enjoy tough things because I think people can learn the most from challenges, and I think that's a good thing. And however, I personally experienced something quite out of control, out of my own control, that prevented me from achieving higher kind of outcomes and better outcomes. And I feel like if I could have the chance to do it all again, I can do things better. Yeah. Sure. So currently I'm working as a researcher in different places, including UWA and other different research places. So my plan is to start my PhD next year, and I perhaps can finish my PhD in 3 years. So that's another year. So I will have 1.5 years, considering your question is 5 years. So I think I will hopefully, if lucky enough, and I think if lucky enough, I will perhaps finish the combined degree in clinical neuropsychology. That's where my dreams towards to. And so I guess I will just become a clinical neuropsychologist and also a researcher, because I really love doing research, and I think that's a very good combination of doing clinical work and research work. So ideally, I want to become a clinical neuropsychologist and a researcher at the same time after 5 years. Yeah.